Hello, whoever watches. It's been a while. I've been busy. I'll start with this interview real quick because, like other videos, I like to put in little things like this because I think it's important to think about what these other people are thinking, what they're doing, stuff like that. So I'll let this play and then we'll get into it.
As you guys were sitting there and you were like a rap god. You did not stop with the instructions, the communication for like 5 rounds straight. Obviously, and I know this in EUL following you, you are a critical leader, one of the best leaders inside of EUL. Do you feel that now that you are, I guess, cemented in the team as a very competent leader, that you're also picking up your personal playstyle a little bit more? Because I know you're playing a little bit more fragging role as well as trying to lead the team at the same time.
Yeah, like it's kind of hard to like be the IGL and try to frag as well. But like I have amazing teammates. Like I said, I'm the IGL, but like we are basically all AGLs. Like we can call things every time, like every round. If someone has an idea or something, they can call for me, or like Renshiro, Shaiko, Rafael, or Bree, they can call. If like I'm out of idea, for example. And so, for example, on those games or those rounds, I can more focus on my aim and try to frag, try to frag. So yeah, I think like the synergy of the team, like it's good. Like to be in AGL on this team, it's pretty good.
Nice, there you go. Got anything, guys? Come on,
Uh,
play the
just
All right, so that's going to pretty much go into what we're going to talk about in this video, how to progress individual and team. Everything he just said, I mean, we're going to cover portions of it throughout this thing. I'm hoping to be around, 30 minutes or less. We'll see. I think it's all important stuff. So, if it goes longer, you can watch, you can not watch. Doesn't matter to me. But anyway, point is, he talked about kind of their team mentality, about how everyone on the team provides, everyone on the team is capable. In my experience, for those of you who do know, or who don't, I just recently was support staff for a CL team called Equalix. They made 6, I believe, in CL this last stage. So did pretty well. Obviously, things could have gone better. Things could have gone worse, But anyway, point is, in my experience, regardless of whatever level I've met with on this game or any game, I've also been slightly competitive in League of Legends as well. So I think it's pretty much across the board. So this could transfer to any game, um, anything from players, teams, support staff, life. Like I said, other games you'll probably take at least some things or a lot from this. It doesn't matter what level you are. That's the goal anyway. So if you make it to the end, I promise you'll have taken something from this to help your team or just you as an individual. So, all right. So going into the first one, we're going to start basic, which is if you look real quick, everything is. Whoops. Go away. Okay. So everything is you could see is the same. Roster changes, bringing more experienced players or new talent on the team, putting in more effort this stage or whatever you've got going on. If you're trying to go from T3 to CL, if you're the team, you're probably closing the gap. Your opponents are probably increasing the gap. In most cases, maybe you're a higher level team who is increasing the gap. Whatever. Then you got both teams doing scrims, right? And then you got the unknown. So unknown for you would be doing new things, opening your mind, branching into the unknown, doing different things. And, that goes into the scrims as well. It's like your opponents are doing all these things. You're doing the same things. What are they doing more than you? What are you doing more than them, right? Pretty basic. So that's that. So then we get into the mentality positivity. I don't care what level I've been at in this game or any other game. This is a constant issue on every team. There's always at least one person or multiple players that this is a problem. I've never been involved in a team or talked to a team, been on a team in esports anyway, whether it's this game, League of Legends, any other game where this wasn't an issue on a team. So maybe your team doesn't have these issues, but either way, there will be things to take from this slide. So starting mentality, mental fortitude, constant problem anywhere I've ever been. Whenever things are hard, whenever things are not going your way, most teams or most players can't have that mental fortitude. So if we're talking about mental fortitude in terms of like someone to look at, I would say, there obviously there's many teams, but one of the teams that I've watched that I think probably has a very strong mental is SSG. And so then, same thing with that interview. If we look at the major, when they were playing, I think it was on Clubhouse against Empire, they were down 0-5. They still lost the game, but they brought it all the way back, went full rounds, 15 rounds, lost the game. But most teams that I've ever watched or been a part of, if they're down 0-5, I mean, they're playing like the game is lost at that point, and they're gonna lose because they've had that mentality. So when you think about mental fortitude, everything throughout this is going to talk about it and stuff, but you need to start training your mind that the game is not over until it's officially over. Whether you're ahead, that's the thing too, is some teams will get ahead and then they just start throwing the game, right? Because they're like, oh, we're 5-0, we can do whatever we want, we could throw some rounds and be aggressive and whatever, right? So it's all about mental fortitude, keeping the right mental state regardless of winning or losing, focusing on what matters, carrying off of mental fortitude. A lot of teams or players that I get involved with at all levels so far always focus on the negative, always focus on what the other team is doing. If they're not performing, like especially fraggers, if they're not performing this map or this half of the game or this, whatever, this series, they get very down, which also brings the team down. So not only are you not fragging, but then your mental fortitude also brings the team down because, if you're not fragging or you're not performing in a specific way, then you need to perform in a different way, right? If you're not fragging, then you should be the best on comms or whatever. You find a way to provide for the team still. It doesn't matter because essentially at this point in the game, with the way that the game is, everybody should be able to frag. So if you're not fragging, if you're performing other tasks for your team, that will open door, just like he was talking about. If he runs out of ideas or whatever, people on his team are able to pick up that weight, and then he could just go for frags, and vice versa. If you're start providing like higher comms, call outs, ideas, if you're not fragging, that will open other doors for the other players, which in turn should make your team successful, right? So moving on, I'm not going to, I don't want to spend too much time talking about the same stuff. You can think about that stuff on your own and figure it out as well. Always put the team first. That's always a huge problem, especially in these games. I feel like obviously a lot of people are very young, like, 20 and below, basically. So not... Maybe some of you have played sports, whatever, but constantly you've been around people who are selfish, who are negative, who are think it's cool to put in, minimum effort, right? So a lot of you have never thought about these things, have never been involved in these things, right? So if you're in a team game like Rainbow Six or any other game or a sport, going off of the other two, if you always focusing on trying to make the team successful regardless of how you're performing, then your team will probably be successful. And that goes for everyone on the team. It's not just, one person. So if you're always putting the team first, always showing up to practice with a good attitude, always, regardless of what's happening in the game, trying to move the team forward to the next round, keeping mental high, whatever you can do to provide for the team and always put the team first, your team will always be more successful if everybody on the team has that mentality. Creating team values. This is something that, I don't think too many teams think about or do. Again, something that's not very talked about at the lower levels and just not taught anywhere really. But creating like a team way, right? So some bullet points on what you expect, like team standards, basically, what you expect in terms of mentality, attitude, whatever, right? Whatever you think will make your team successful, everybody has to believe in that system, and it should make your team successful. Teams that don't have a direction, don't have standards or values, most likely aren't going to last, most likely aren't going to be successful. Open your mind, don't be closed-minded. That's pretty self-explanatory, but surprisingly, it's something that has to be talked about. Open your mind to all sources, right? Whether you got to study, life things like we're talking about, mentality stuff, game stuff. The teams that plateau or stop progressing are the teams that think they know everything, think that they're the best. You know what I mean? So they've closed their mind to progression. They've closed their mind to any sources of knowledge at that point. So then your team won't progress. And then that's usually, especially in T3, where you get teams disbanding, every couple weeks, reforming, all that crap, right? Because it's all about, again, creating those values, putting the team first, making sure you keep your mind open and learning at all times. Creating a champion mindset. So if you're in T3 and you want to win, let's say SFCL or SCS, you have to create a mindset of like winning, right? You can't just like go in and expect to win. That's pretty self-explanatory. If you're in T2 and you want to win stage 3, you have to create a mindset as a team and on an individual level of a winner, doing whatever it takes, putting in the effort, right? Like you can't just become a winner or a champion at any, pro league, challenger league, T3 just because you say it, right? It's not going to happen unless you find the ways, the tools, whatever to make it happen. So that goes into work ethic. That's again, a lot of my experience are people who are 20 and below, which I don't personally care about age, but like when you think about a lot of the people that I've met in this game and a lot of people that you talk to, some of them have never had jobs, some of them still live at home, whatever, right? So some of you have never had to learn work ethic yet. So if you want to be successful in this game or school or anything in life, you have to learn that you're going to have to do things that you don't want to do, and you're going to have to stay positive about it. You can't just be lazy. You can't be complacent. You can't just expect things to happen just because you want them to, right? You have to work for them. You have to be different than everybody else. So that goes into feeding your mind. Success will equal success. Studying, like, again, when we talk about all these things, think about the people that you surround yourself with. Are they constantly complaining? Are they constantly being negative? Are they toxic, right? If you're constantly surrounding yourself with those people, then, you're not going to progress, or you're going to plateau at some point. And that's, everything we've talked about, mental fortitude. So you got to start looking at, finding icons, famous people, which we'll talk about later, and listening to whatever. Just feed your mind success. Surround yourself with people who want to be successful, who want to be hungry, who are motivated, right? And then eventually you're going to be successful. It's going to push you to higher limits or progression. It's not about the time you put in, but the value, right? Some teams will grind, some people, because they don't have jobs or teams, they play the game all day, every day, right? But that just because you play the game all day, every day, you might play more than CL players, or CL players might play more than pro players. Whatever, it happens at all levels. It depends on the team and the players, what they got going on, and the support staff. But it's all about how you spend your time, not how much time you spend, right? It's pretty simple. So I'll leave it at that. So moving on to positivity, because I'm trying to move it along here. Hunting the good stuff is something that I learned in the military, my time in there. Basically, a lot of the stuff that we talked about correlates, whereas things are going to go wrong no matter what. You're going to lose rounds, you're going to lose games, strats aren't going to work, whatever, right? Become adaptable, find what, if one round doesn't work, maybe it didn't work for this reason, but we did well in this aspect, right? Like comms or whatever, and we just slightly lost because we had this misplay. So if you're hunting the good stuff, you take what you did good, move that into the next round, tweak your whatever you did wrong, and always look for the good stuff. So, and that goes back into that mental fortitude of SSG. If you're down 0-5, you're probably doing some things right, but you're probably doing some things wrong, and keeping your mentality and positivity high, then if you're hunting the good stuff, you'll be able to hopefully come back, right? So always look at the positives. There's always going to be negatives. There's always going to be positives. But if you always focus on the negatives, then, you've already lost at that point. So A healthy team environment will promote growth at a faster pace, which is very true. The other thing to think about is like um, your potential, right? So if you have a healthy team environment, not only are you going to grow at a faster pace, but you're also going to increase that cap. I've heard a lot of teams say like, "Oh, we've reached the cap with these players, so we got to drop said players and pick up different players," right? That's a short-term fix, but is it going to fix the root of the problem? Like, sure, if you have a very negative person on your team and you remove them and you bring in someone positive, that's good. But like, if overall, the team doesn't have a good mentality and you drop players just to try and bring in mechanical skill, you're still going to reach a cap, right? It's not going to change anything. It's just a short-term fix. You might do better for a couple weeks during the honeymoon phase, but then when you get into those grinding of 4 or 5 weeks in, you're going to start running into problems. Like, you didn't fix anything. So you have to create a healthy team environment because you're going to grow faster, but you're also going to increase that cap. Show appreciation and respect for your teammates and the time and effort they put in. So I don't care, if you're T3, PL, CL, whatever, right? You're all putting in time. You've all put in time to get to that point. You've all shown dedication, and it goes all ways. Like, if you got people on your team who have higher goals and who are working hard, then, even if it's a hobby for you, you're part of the team. You should put in a little bit extra work to make them successful. Again, always put the team first. Like, there's a lot of things that go into that. So it's just something to think about. Be open about issues, provide constructive criticism, and help individuals and the team grow. Constructive criticism here is key. Can't tell you how many teams. It's all teams that I've been involved with in this game, as well as League of Legends. It seems to be a big issue of having constructive criticism, right? A lot of people, number one, are negative when things go wrong, and they just like to berate and just like get in people, just chew them out for it, right? But at the end of the day, like, when you go in tomorrow, did they learn anything besides you just taking your anger out on them? Whereas constructive criticism will help them grow. They're more likely to listen. They'll have a better attitude because you're not being an asshole. And just think about this. Treat people the way you want to be treated. If someone's coming in and being an asshole to you and chewing you out and yelling at you, are you going to put in more effort? Is that going to change your mindset? Probably not. You're probably going to get angry about it and be like, fuck that guy. You know what I mean? Like, it's that simple. So treat people the way you want to be treated. Give constructive criticism. Everyone has bad days. If someone is not present or is tilted, help them regain focus. It doesn't matter if you have the guy on your team who is the positivity person, who's always, being positive. They're going to have bad days. And when they have bad days, you need to pick up that mantle and be the positivity for them. Hunt the good stuff, right? Whew, spent way too long on that one. All right, internal questions. Can your team win this stage or progress to higher levels just because you guys want it to? Or will it take effort? A lot of stuff that we talked about in the last. This is just food for thought. So, think about it. That's it. That's all I'm going to put into this slide. Think about who you were up to this point. Has it been enough? Or have you or your team plateaued, right? Are you willing to do more or be different? Are you willing to open your mind to learning anything and everything available? On an individual level, what can you provide to your team to create a champion mentality? How can you help your team stay on task and focused each day and each week? I'll add one thing into this is, have fun. It's a game. A lot of people started playing this because it's a game. They were having fun. It's a different type of game. But if you're trying to go into Challenger League, if you're trying to go into Pro League, think about other sports, other professions, right? Football, basketball, MMA, whatever it is that maybe you have interest in, or you don't. It doesn't matter. Either way, think about those players or people and think about what they put in. They enjoy doing that, and that's why they do it, right? But at the end of the day, they don't go in and waste a day of practice, right? They have goals, they have ambition. That's what they focus on while having fun. Are you hungrier than everyone else? and are you willing to outwork / outgrow your opponents? Very important. I got to take a drink of water. Hold on. All right, so how you should approach progression. Professionalism, something that I don't see anywhere in this game. Maybe at the pro level, I don't have any networking to talk to pro players or anything like that. But in my experience, most people aren't treating this. Again, if you want to go pro, it's called pro for a reason. You're a professional, right? So it's that simple. Go in, do your job, obviously have fun, but you're there for a reason, right? Imagine what your opponents are doing. So that goes for T3, CL, PL. Are you willing to do the same or more to keep pace or surpass them, right? If you're in T3 trying to push into CL, you got to do something different. Like maybe you've been grinding T3 for a year, you've done 2 CL quals, you haven't made it, right? So that's where you have to enter reflect, think about what you've been doing, what your opponents are doing, and start thinking about if you need to do things different, whatever, right? Every map, every day, every week matters. Become more than you were yesterday. Become more than you were last week. Creating a champion does not manifest just because you say you want to win, which is something we've talked about. Keeping laser focus on your end goal as well as your daily / weekly goals are the keys to progression, right? Never waver. That never waver is the important part. It's the same thing, a lot of people want 6-pack abs. They go work out at the gym 2 weeks maybe. They didn't get the result they want. They stop working out. It's the same thing here. If you want to go to CL, if you want to go to PL, you have to stay focused on your end goal and create, smaller goals along the way to check off to get there. It's not just going to happen. You can't just go in and scrim every day and expect to get there and get different results than what you have been. Which goes into the next thing, open your mind to all sources. Other teams have egos and bad attitudes, which will limit their growth. This is clear at all levels, which is something I've talked about. If you've been playing the game for a while, you've seen it. There's T3 players who have been in T3 for, X amount of time, have done several CL quals, have never made it, don't get CL tryouts. Same thing in CL. There's players who have been in CL for a while, don't get PL tryouts. It carries over all places, right? To be great, you must study great people, which is what we talked about. Open your mind to all sources. Look up quotes, speeches, and the mentality it took for said greats to become what they became. They all made it to the top of the mountain for a reason. To be successful, one must feed their mind success, something we talked about, and there are no shortcuts, right? So this is all stuff that individuals and teams need to think about, talk about together. Like, it's that simple. I picked Mike Tyson here because I like fighting, I like boxing, I like MMA, and if you watch, maybe you never studied anything about Mike Tyson, but something that you could learn about him is that they talked about, and he's talked about how he would spend hours in front of the mirror, throwing the same punches, doing the same thing, watching himself in the mirror, perfecting his art. Whereas, and you can see it when he fights, right? If you watch him, compared to other people. And that to me is all about the mentality. That's what makes him different than a lot of the other boxers at that time, right? So, always work one level higher than you are, right? So if you're T3, imagine yourself as a CL team. If you're trying to get to CL, right, imagine yourself as a CL team. What would you need to be doing in CL to be successful? What would you need to be doing in CL to stay in CL, right? If you're in Challenger League, think about yourself as a pro player. Think about what pro players are doing. Are you know what I mean? Like, you probably have networking where if you're high in T3, then you probably know Challenger players. You know what kind of training regiment they do. If you're in Challenger League, same thing goes for PL. You probably have networking with those players. You probably know what they're doing, what their support staff is making them do. Are you doing similar stuff, or are you doing more, right? So always work one level higher than where you currently are if you have ambition to go higher. So something we talked about briefly, Find icons that speak to you and take attributes from them, right? Successful people are successful for a reason. Learn from them and create your own version. So when we're talking about that, if in terms of sports, Mike Tyson, Muhammad Ali, Ray Lewis, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, etc. If you're talking about greats in history, maybe people like the Spartans, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Plato. Look at the Art of War, stuff like that. Players, find your icons who are very good at specific things. Canadian, Fabian, Chala, Bolo, Shako, whoever it might be, right? They're all there for reasons. They all are known for specific things. If you want to be like them, you're going to create your own version, but you need to think about what they provide, what they're known for, and try to create your own style of it, but also implement things from them into your style because, again, they're there for a reason. So use them. And I think that's a very overlooked thing. So anyway, moving on. Take the time to self-reflect and grow. If you want to become more, you must create that in your mind, right? So if we're thinking about the greats, envision them, become a version of them, but obviously your own version. Envision yourself 6 months from now or your end goal. What kind of person do you think you need to become to achieve that goal? Will your future self, this is important here, I think about your future self. So if you think about yourself now and you think about yourself 6 months ago, 3 months ago, have you put in the work, and do you thank yourself, your past self for what they did, right? If not, then that's something you need to address and think about, yourself 3 months, 6 months from now, whatever time frame, and think about what kind of work you're going to have to put in to be different, to be more, and then will your future self thank you for that effort that you put in, right? Become a student of hard work with good ethics and values. I mean, we've pretty much covered that multiple times throughout this, and it's, kind of the whole goal of what we're talking about here. Don't be a couldn't read. Don't be a product of your environment or a victim of circumstance. Like we talked about, bad things are going to happen. There's problems with the game. The game is not perfect. Teams are not going to play the standard Siege that you always want them or expect them to play. There's so many things that could be said about this, right? So, again, hunt the good stuff. Move on past it. If you play the game, you accept those things about the game, and you're just going to have to, move on. So, and same thing. Everybody in the community is, for the most part, is negative, toxic, has big egos. If you want to be different, if you want to be more, remove those traits from yourself, right? Be humble. And so, be different than everyone else, right? All right, so the keys to success. I realize I haven't been reading the top the whole time. Whatever. You can read for yourself. All right, number 1. Pick players who are hungry and have a healthy mindset. So, seen this multiple times, especially in T3, right? People will do tryouts. They pick the guy who is just popping off for, maybe 2 maps, right? But they don't necessarily address or talk to them about their mentality. If they came from previous teams, have you vetted them? Do you know people on those teams? What kind of mentality does this person have, again, after the honeymoon phase? When you get into weeks 4, weeks 5, what kind of mindset are they going to have? Are they going to stay constantly motivated? Do they share the same goals as you? Right? If you're looking for long-term success, you need to look for hungry people with a good mindset, because, again, you're going to limit your growth, and your team is going to fail at some point because either A, you're going to have to drop that player, pick up a new player eventually, or whatever, right? Maybe it's something that you can work on with those players, but, again, they have to open their mind to that source, right? Create team mottos and beliefs, which is kind of what we talked about earlier in terms of standards. One of the things I've always push on teams that I talk to and work with is train how you fight. So when you think about scrims, are you just treating scrims like, oh, it's another scrim, I'm so bored to be here, I don't care to be here, right? Or are you going to train like it's a game day, like trying hard, trying to learn, trying to adapt? It's all about that. If you want to, and same thing, if you want to grow your cap, right, or your Yeah, whatever, cap. If you want to grow that and you don't want to hit that plateau, then you have to have, again, that successful mindset of always trying to be better. So create some mottos for your team and beliefs. Always reference them, before practice, or if things, especially, that's the other thing, in between maps. Say you do 2 or 3 maps. If one map goes bad and mentalities are not great, that's where you need to, in between the maps, take a 5-10 minute break. You don't have to lecture, you don't have to, rage or anything, but that's where you can take that couple minutes of like, let's check out our team mottos, our team standards, our team beliefs. Does everybody think we lived up to them? That map, next map is a new map. Let's try to live by our, standards or mottos, right? Constructive criticism, we've already talked about. Don't do the same thing every day. Create daily and weekly goals on an individual level and a team level. All teams need a direction, right? And that's where you get your goals. This is something I think is hugely undervalued, right? So many teams that I've sat in with or talked with or been a part of, they just go in each day. We're going to run our strats, scrim. They do nothing different than they did yesterday, right? But then they expect to somehow be better. So create on an individual level. What do you want to work on? Where do you think you were weak yesterday? Try to fix that today, right? Same thing for the team. If you guys had a bad map yesterday, sometimes it has to do with strategy. Sometimes it has to do with positioning. But other times it has to do with, like, maybe your comms weren't there. Maybe your mentality wasn't there. Whatever. All right? So then what you take is, like, today, we need to make sure that our comms are high. We need to make sure whatever, right? Whatever example you want to put there. You have to have daily and weekly goals. So then, you've created that daily goal. So let's make it a consistent thing throughout the week. And then at the end of the week, we'll have a team meeting and we'll evaluate how we did. Maybe a 1 out of 10 scale or whatever, right? Moving into next week, what are we going to keep focus on, right? You have to have some focus, some way to gauge your improvement. You can't just go in, scrim every day, do the same shit, expect different results, all right? So moving into another thing that's highly undervalued, VOD review yourself. So I don't care what game you come from, or if all you focus on is Siege. I come from Warcraft 3, chess, League of Legends, and then if you think about sports itself, football, basketball, whatever, they're all doing not only VOD reviews of their opponents, but VOD reviews of themselves. Where were they weak? How do they fix it? Again, that goes into that daily and weekly goals. So in my opinion, if you do 3 maps a day, you should do 1 VOD. It doesn't matter. 2, 3 maps. You should take the time either as an individual or as a team to do at least 1 VOD review and go through, like, either watching yourself or as a team. And, like, again, that's where that constructive criticism comes in, and talk about problems that you faced. Maybe, and that, in my opinion, a lot of it comes down to mentality and communication. People are making plays that they're not telling their team, so then players on their team can't capitalize off of those plays or support those plays. Whatever your problems are, right? Maybe a player is in a position where they're not necessarily comfortable, so either you need to address that, or again, you kind of need to, like, coach them about that position, like what things they could do, and they can talk to you about, like, what issues they're running into, all that stuff, right? So all I ever see is teams just go in and scrim. Then they never talk about anything. Then, some people will get off mad or whatever's going on. This is at all levels that I've been a part of at this point. And then they don't talk about anything after the game. They just log off. They come back in the next day. They scrim again. They do the same thing, run into the same problems, get angry about it, and they just go through this cycle, right? You need to take the time to VOD review. And so, maybe you're T3 or T2, you don't have as much time, but in my opinion, you should make the point to either do 1 less map and try to do this at least 2 to 3 times a week at minimum. But in my opinion, if you're doing 2 or 3 maps a day, you should be doing at least 1 VOD review a day of your team, as a team, or as individuals, and I promise you, you will grow so much faster. Last thing, after action review, AAR, which is kind of what we talked about in the VOD reviews. Take the time to address the problems that you face today, where you lack today, and then go into that daily, weekly goals of how you can be better tomorrow, how you can be better next week, and then take the time when tomorrow comes, right, when it's today, be like, revisit those points before you scrim. Like, hey, we had these problems yesterday. Let's look at these problems today. Make sure that we're putting in extra effort to make sure they're not problems today, right? That's how you're going to grow. If you want to grow, you have to take the time to do the things, use the tools at your disposal to grow, okay? All right. So I'm going to leave you guys with some quotes here that, again, food for thought. I think it's important. So, take this for what it is and just take the time to think about this type of stuff and look up quotes for yourself. Maybe these quotes don't work for you, so find some other ones. All right, so the first one. The best investment you can make is in yourself, which is what we've talked about so far. Like, take the time to do VOD reviews. Take the time to talk as a team. Constructive criticism. Daily and weekly goals. If you do all those things, you use all those tools, you will be successful. Because probably the majority of people who watch this, whether it's teams or individuals, are probably not doing those things. And if they are, they're not doing them consistently every day, every week, right? It's like a sporadic thing, like once a week, every once in a while, you do those things. And then, obviously you're not going to grow, or you're not going to grow as fast. No great thing is created suddenly, any more than a bunch of grapes or a fig. If you tell me that you desire a fig, I answer that there must be time. Let it first blossom, then bear fruit, then ripen. Exactly what we talked about. Invest in yourself. Take the time to invest in those tools. Be consistent with those tools. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but at the end of the day, if you think about your opponents in most teams, they're not using those same tools that we've talked about. So eventually you're going to pass them because you're taking the time to build that foundation, right? Huge one here, in my opinion. Complaining does not work as a strategy. We all have finite time and energy. Any time we spend whining is unlikely to help us achieve our goals, and it won't make us happier, which is pretty true. I've been involved in a lot of teams between League of Legends and Rainbow Six, and complaining is a consistent thing, especially in Rainbow Six, because there's just a lot of problems, with the game, whatever. But at the end of the day, it's not going to change anything for you. It's not going to change anything for the team, and you're just going to come right back in tomorrow and complain again. So, it's not, at the end of the day, it's not going to make you any happier. And honestly, it's just going to bring down the mental of your team and yourself. So, just something to think about. First, say what you would be, and then do what you have to do, right? I think a lot of people do the first part, which is like we talked about. I want to be a challenger player. I want to be a pro league player, right? They say it, but then they never, which is kind of what a big point, or the main point of what we talked about through this thing, is finding the tools to get you there, right? And being consistent and having the discipline to do them. I think people just never follow up on the second part there. The key is to keep company with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best, right? So that goes into picking players with healthy mindsets, right? Positive players who are hungry. They're going to come in, and maybe at that moment in time, they might not be as mechanically gifted as blah, 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 right? Whoever the hell you're bringing in. But if you think about your long-term progression, your long-term success is bringing in that mechanically skilled player with a toxic mentality and a big ego going to help your team? Or is it just going to be like that for the honeymoon phase, and then are you going to plateau? And then are you going to have to make roster changes? Whereas if you're bringing in people who are hungry, motivated, every day, trying to make the team grow, then your team is going to grow long term, right? It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. So in Rainbow Six especially, ego is a huge thing. For some reason, even at the T3 level, they all think that they're Bolo or Shaco. They all think that they're Canadian or Fabian, right? Everybody, for some reason, or for the most part, thinks that they're the smartest, thinks that they're the best, yet they've never won like for the most part, they've never won leagues. Even if they won T3 leagues, they're not in Challenger League. They've failed at Challenger qualifications. If they're in Challenger League, most of them, except for one team, has not won Challenger League. If you're in PL, again, if you haven't won, then there's things to learn. And it doesn't matter Challenger League or Pro League. Most of the time, the top teams are always at the top, stage after stage, and the bottom teams are always at the bottom, stage after stage, right? And that's because, again, they're not opening their mind to sources, and they think they know everything. So if you are that person, I would say really think about that and try to change that about yourself. So if you know the enemy and you know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. Okay? So, number 1, VOD reviews. Creating team standards. That's how you kind of learn about yourself. And that's where you have to talk as a team. What kind of style are you guys trying to play? If you compare yourself to a pro team, what style are they? What can you take from them? I mean, don't copy them exactly, but you know what I mean? You have a direction. So know your team, what you're capable of, play your game, study your opponent, know what they are capable of. You don't have to necessarily counter them, but the more you know about them, the more you know about yourself, the less you'll be bothered by things, the less that you'll spend time worrying about who they are, whatever, find whatever answer you want to put there, but you'll be more successful. If you know yourself but not your enemy, and this to me is a lot of, at all levels, but mostly tier 3 teams or challenger teams who are mid of the pack. They'll win one game, but then they can't beat those top tier teams at that level, right? So you need to know, study yourself, but also take the time to study your enemies. And if you don't have a team motto, if you don't have a team direction, if you don't have team values, if you're not studying your enemy and know what they're capable of, then you're just going to lose everything. So those are my opinions. Some good quotes, I think, for some people. Take what you want from them. Look up your own quotes, find your own icons, become, like I said, take things from them and create a better person, a better version of yourself, and you'll grow further, right? So that's all I got. Thanks for the time. I have no idea how long this went, but, hopefully you enjoyed. See ya.